One of the caveats that I do have some personal information that I did get personally involved in was some information that had to do with the Stargates and Looking Glass, and more specifically the 2012 problem with those projects. I guess popular opinion of what's out there right now is that the project was shut down because there was a problem when we approached 2012. The timelines converge on that point in time. And when you know enough about the Stargate projects and the Looking Glass project to know how string theory works and how the possibility of possibilities works and how making one choice over here doesn't necessarily mean the other choice couldn't exist at the same time. But once you get your brain wrapped around this subject, you find out that at the end of 2012, in an easy way to put it, the choices that we make become less and less consequential to the future. And eventually we're pushed into this bottleneck of time, no matter which choice we make. What happened was people, very smart people, began to figure out that something big was coming up. Something that made it so all the possibilities of all the future scenarios of any choice, any possibility that was fed in and observed through the Looking Glass inherently ended up in the same future. And no decision, no possibility changed past a certain point. That's the big secret.
Okay, so is that certainly 2012 in your understanding?
It well coincides with December 21st, 2012. The people that know everything about Looking Glass, that have gotten all the reports and all the information, the elites of the world, probably figured out that that was the end of the game. Nothing could be manipulated beyond that point.
What about the notion that CERN, for example, is engaged in trying to beat that game, as you call it?
I would say, look at the problems CERN has had. The crazy little things that have kept that project from moving forward. Certainly they have never even come close to getting that project to the level they want it to be to do what they really want to do with it.
Okay, well, what about the notion that that's the party line, that they haven't been able to do so? But if you really think about it, that's what they would prefer people to believe, so that they don't think that there's a threat.
Listen to the interviews of the scientists that are working on the project. Even they say that it seems like somebody or something from the future won't let them get that project done. At a certain point, after they're done hearing the computer tell them this is what's going to happen over and over and over and over again, all they become focused on is how do we fix it?
Why? What is the this that's going to happen?
The inevitable contraction of the timeline.
Is it your understanding that the notion that Looking Glass has been, that there are various looking glasses around the globe supposedly, that according to Dan Burish were shut down? Is it your understanding they're actually not shut down?
I believe that they're shut down because they are all saying the same thing, and they're completely useless at this point. Right. It's like the Wicked Witch, looking into the magic mirror and always getting the same answer. If you were always getting the exact opposite of the answer that you wanted, you'd stop talking to the mirror. And that's essentially what happened with Looking Glass. Is not only did they not want people to use it anymore because they knew it was just going to burp out the same thing, but at the same time they didn't want anybody else to know what it was saying, I'm sure, because that information was monumental concern when I was in the military about how to prevent this inevitability. We as human beings are far more capable of using many, many advanced skills beyond 5 senses. With a little bit of training and the knowledge that it was actually possible, most people could accurately predict the possibilities of the future.
Do you feel that you were enhanced physically?
No. I have had a device implanted in me, and I later was of the understanding that that device did not do what I was told it was doing. It was not to provide enhancement, it was to provide monitoring. You were never told that the actual belief in what you were doing was giving you the ability. The biggest cherry on top of all this conversation would be a synopsis to say that if I could convince everybody out there that for all intents and purposes, what we believe to be true eventually becomes true. If somebody convinces us that a major disaster is going to happen in the very near future, a major disaster happens in the very near future. If we don't buy into that fear and accept that there is really nothing that we know is going to happen, and accept of whatever happens, that makes the convergence of the timelines happen as naturally as possible.
Since mankind first started developing atomic energy, there has been consistent UAP activity at sites involved with the atomic and nuclear process. We have evolved more technically in the last 80 years than we have in the previous 200,000 years. And the uptick in UAP activity has increased in line with our advancement of harnessing energy. We realize we are on the path to exploiting the energy levels needed to warp space-time, and UAP have been observing and clearly been interested in our rapid progress.
Despite developing massively new technologies, we don't see an equivalent moral increase in how we deal with each other.
We are still invading sovereign nations. We're still threatening nuclear war 80 years after dropping atomic bombs that vaporized hundreds of thousands of human beings. Let's face it, we are a violent species.
So if I were a species from somewhere else, even if I were a hidden species on the planet, who saw how we were coming up this curve of, atomic energy and nuclear energy, and then began to realize what it takes to do their kind of technologies with warping time and warping space and so on, I can imagine that could be seen as a threat to another species, because they would recognize that, well, it's only a matter of time, and they're going to be doing what we're doing, and then we're going to have to deal with them.
So it doesn't surprise me that their highest priority would be to identify what threats they might face and learn everything about them. This pattern of activity seems to me utterly logical. It seems to me to be an extension of the evolutionary process that governs life writ large as we know it, which is self-preservation is number one.
When I hear stories of either nuclear weapon sites being shut down or turned on, what that tells me is something quite interesting. First off, is that something has a technology capable of reaching into our nuclear weapons systems at a distance in ways that we don't understand. Okay, that's just capability. But if you ask the question about intent, at the very least what it tells me is that they're showing us what they can do to us at will, or with us, or they can stop us. Now, they didn't stop us from blowing something up in Japan. They didn't stop the first of the bombs. So at some level, they're willing to let us see the consequences of our actions. But at another level, they're willing to also show us that, you might think that you could hurt us one day, but you can't. We really can just reach in and stop you, or cause you to blow each other up, because at the end of the day, you're getting in our way and you're really starting to annoy us.
So even though it has been reported that some of our fighter pilots have chased these objects and even fired missiles at them, there has not been some kind of strong negative retaliation. So it'd be pretty easy to come to the conclusion they're friendly and that's fine, and there's no real threat there. But the truth of the matter is, you have to take into account, well, under what condition, that might change. For example, if you have ants at the back of your yard, they're not a threat to you, so that's fine. But if they come and invade your house, suddenly they're a threat. And so it could be the same in this situation. So at least within the defense and intelligence industry, we automatically assume the worst because we want to be prepared against the worst if it should happen.
There's a concern within the defense and intelligence communities that UAPs have been undertaking long-term surveillance of human technological advancement for the possibility that they may need to intervene to prevent a conflict between us and them.
One of the reasons that I am so ardent about this issue is because I think it has the potential to change the perspective and the outlook of world leaders and the populations of those countries, to see more of what we have in common and the challenges that we face together. If we're going to survive as a species, we need unprecedented levels of international collaboration.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Thomas Jefferson once said, "I'm not an advocate for frequent changes in laws and constitutions, but laws and institutions must go hand in hand with the progress of the human mind. As that becomes more developed, more enlightened, as new discoveries are made, new truths discovered, and manners and opinions change. With the change of circumstances, institutions must advance also to keep pace with the times." Our current Senate leadership feels the same as our founding fathers. And throughout the fall of 2023, my colleagues and I met with Senate leadership to help give them clarity on the facts as they fought for the most historic UAP legislation we've ever had.
Never in the history of our nation have we ever seen any type of legislation regarding UAP that is as detailed and specific and as directive as this one.
The United States government has gathered a great deal of information about UAPs over many decades, but has refused to share it with the American people. That is wrong, and additionally, it breeds mistrust.
There is, we believe, information and data that has been collected by more than just the Department of Defense, but by other agencies of the federal government as well.
Information on UAPs has also been withheld from Congress, which was a violation of the laws requiring full notification to the legislative branch. The bill I worked on with Senator Rounds offered a common sense solution. The Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena Disclosure Act.
This would be the most aggressive measure that we've frankly ever seen in history when it comes to disclosure about what the government knows and has as it relates to UAPs.
The measure would also give the federal government control over all recovered technologies of unknown origin and biological evidence of non-human intelligence.
Eminent domain allows the U.S. government to take control of anything for national security reasons or for the betterment of the American people.
A requirement as a transparency measure for the government to obtain any recovered UAP material or biological remains that may have been provided to private entities in the past and thereby hidden from Congress and the American people.
The eminent domain section was not crafted accidentally. It was designed to be put in there clearly to lay out our expectations. Contractors may have information that they have held or materials that they have held over an extended period of time. And this is our way of addressing it and making it clear that it should be delivered in an appropriate fashion and that they need to be negotiating with us now.